Imagine waking up in the middle of a jungle, your body broken, your loved one gone, and no food to eat, only rainwater to keep you alive. For 8 long days, one woman faced death alone, with nothing but her will to survive. This is the unbelievable true story of Annette Herfkens, the sole survivor of a deadly plane crash in Vietnam. Annette Herfkens was an investment banker from the Netherlands. In 1992, she was just 31 years old, full of life, and deeply in love. She had been dating her fiancé, Willem, and the two of them decided to take a romantic trip to Vietnam. They booked seats on a small Vietnam Airlines flight, Flight 474, that would take them from Ho Chi Minh City to the seaside resort of Nha Trang. The plan was simple: spend some quiet time together in one of the most beautiful parts of the country. But fate had a completely different plan. On November 14, 1992, Annette boarded the plane with Willem, smiling, unaware that within hours, tragedy would strike. Flight 474 was a small Russian-built aircraft. On that day, the weather wasn't ideal. The skies were cloudy and heavy mist rolled over the mountains. About 20 minutes before landing, the pilots attempted to descend. But as the plane lowered, disaster struck. The aircraft slammed into the mountains of Con Hoa province. The crash was devastating. Trees were ripped apart, the fuselage shattered, and almost everyone on board died instantly. Annette somehow regained consciousness amidst twisted metal and bodies. She was disoriented, bleeding, and in immense pain. When she looked around, she realized something horrifying: her fiancé Willem was gone. He hadn't survived. Annette was the only one left alive. Annette's injuries were severe. Her jaw was fractured, her hip dislocated, and her chest battered. She had deep cuts, broken ribs, and bruises covering her body. But worst of all, she was completely alone. No food, no medical help, no rescue team in sight. The plane wreckage was surrounded by thick jungle. She could hear nothing but the buzz of insects, the sound of rain, and the occasional call of wild animals. The reality sank in. If she was going to live, she would have to fight with everything she had. The first day was spent in shock. She drifted in and out of consciousness, weak from her injuries. At times, she wondered if it would be easier just to let go. But Annette remembered her family back home. She thought of her fiancé, and she decided she couldn't let this be the end. With sheer determination, she began searching the wreckage for anything that could help. But there was nothing: no food, no supplies. Her only resource? Rainwater. By the second day, Annette's survival instincts kicked in. She began collecting rainwater in leaves and pieces of metal from the wreckage. Carefully, she sipped just enough to stay hydrated. But hunger was a different battle. There was nothing edible around her. The jungle was full of plants and insects, but in her condition, she didn't dare experiment. She remembered her mother's words: "You can survive without food for weeks, but without water only a few days." So she focused on water. Meanwhile, her body throbbed in pain. Her hip was so badly injured she could barely move. Lying on the wet ground, surrounded by the smell of death from the other passengers, Annette clung to life. By the 4th day, the physical pain was unbearable. Her lips were cracked, her body weak. But the greatest challenge was mental. She was utterly alone. No human voices, no rescue helicopters. Only silence and the thought of her fiancé's death. Annette forced her mind to stay active. She replayed happy memories. She imagined conversations with her family. She visualized herself surviving, being rescued, and telling her story. This mental discipline became her greatest weapon. On the 6th day, Annette began to lose hope. Her body was wasting away. She was too weak to stand, too weak to crawl far from the wreckage. But then, something remarkable happened. She heard sounds, voices. Vietnamese villagers had begun searching the mountains after reports of a missing plane. They were nearby, but the jungle was so dense they couldn't see her. Annette tried to scream, but her voice was too weak. She was invisible in the sea of green. Still, she refused to give up. She told herself, if they are close once, they will be close again. Finally, on the 8th day, salvation came. Villagers stumbled upon the wreckage and discovered Annette, barely alive, dehydrated, but conscious. She had survived 8 days in the jungle, with no food, no medicine, and only rainwater to drink. She was rushed to a hospital in Nha Trang. Doctors were astonished. How could a woman with such severe injuries survive so long alone? Annette spent weeks recovering. Her injuries healed slowly, but the emotional scars were much deeper. She had lost her fiancé, the love of her life. Survivor's guilt haunted her. Why had she lived when everyone else perished? But over time, Annette realized something profound. She had been given a second chance at life. She eventually wrote a memoir, Turbulence, a true story of survival, where she shared her experience of resilience, love, and the will to survive. Annette's story is not just about surviving a plane crash, it's about the power of the human spirit. She proved that survival isn't only physical, it's mental strength that makes the difference. She showed that even in the face of death, hope can keep us alive. And most importantly, she taught us that resilience comes from within. Her words to survivors of other tragedies are simple, yet powerful. You are stronger than you think. Annette Herfkens survived one of the worst experiences imaginable, 8 days alone in the jungle, broken, grieving, but unbroken in spirit. Her story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, the will to live can overcome impossible odds. If you found her story inspiring, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more incredible real-life survival stories. Because sometimes, the most powerful lessons about life come from those who refuse to let it go.